Welcome back. It's Nicole Goodman, and this is Exception to the Hearsay Rule. I'm reporting on the Chad Daybell trial from the gallery. Now, before I go over what happened last week and where we're going to be starting tomorrow morning, don't forget to hit that like button. Feel free to share, drop me a comment below, ask me a question, and smash that subscribe button. All right, let's dive in. Last week, the Chad Daybell trial was extremely eventful. The prosecution wrapped up its case, and they did an amazing job. They knocked it right out of the park. The last couple of witnesses laid out for the jury an easy to understand and comprehensive timeline that went over everything from the day that Chad and Lori Vallow met until his arrest. And they were able to piece together that timeline using details from text messages, emails, cell phone and Google location data that you could literally hear the victory music playing in the background. And then the prosecution rested. Now I want to take just a moment and give some much due props out to the defense attorney, John Pryor. He's done an excellent job trying to defend his client, and it's not easy to be a criminal defense attorney. You have got to have an ego made of concrete. I mean, they lose more than they win. If it were me, I would be home crying in the corner in the fetal position. I do not have that tough a skin. So I just want to take a second and give him a shout out because he has done an excellent job defending his client. Now, that being said, a lot of people get upset with the defense attorney who's doing his job. But try to remember, he's trying to put lipstick on a pig. And if you remember that old saying, it's still a pig at the end of the day. Although my mother had a different phrase and it had to do with polishing something. And no matter how much you polished it, it was still a turd. After the prosecution rested, and then the defense makes a motion for a directed verdict. This is a motion essentially arguing that the prosecution has not met its burden to prove its case, or they haven't met the elements required by the statute to support the case. It's one of those motions that is always made at the close of the plaintiff's case and is always lost. But in this case, something interesting happened. The judge pointed out that the prosecution made a gigantic mistake and they almost blew the entire murder charge against Chad Daybell for the first-degree murder of J.J. Vallow. The judge pointed out that the prosecution put the wrong information in the criminal indictment. Specifically, they had the wrong date of the first-degree murder of J.J. Vallow. The problem being that the jury had relied on the information in the indictment at the beginning of the case. The prosecution essentially just typed in the same date for Tylee Ryan's murder as J.J.'s. Therefore, the judge was inclined to grant directed verdict on that charge, and all hell broke loose. But he took a break and allowed the prosecution to go ahead and do some research and then come back and argue it later on in the afternoon. The prosecution got up, rushed to their office, jumped on Westlaw, and began frantically searching for cases. Early on in the case, the prosecution had filed a request to amend 3 specific counts in the criminal indictment. In order to do so in Idaho, you have to have a judge's permission. So the prosecution filed a motion, and the judge granted the motion and did make an amendment to portions of the indictment. However, the portion that had the date of J.J. Vallow's murder, which was typewritten as the same date as Tylee's murder, was an accidental typo because that portion of the indictment had never been requested to be amended, and the court had never granted a motion to amend that portion of the indictment. And while there was no specific case on point, the prosecution used the catch-all argument called in the interest of justice. So here they argued that the court, in the interest of justice, could fix that clerical error and the typo because it was never requested to be amended, they never had permission to amend it, and therefore the indictment should stand as it originally did without the typo. And in the end, the judge sided with the prosecution and fixed the clerical error, allowing the original indictment to stand. But the worst part is that he's one of those judges that starts to read their decision and you have no idea which way they're going for like 20 minutes until they finally reveal their hand. And by then, everyone in the courtroom is sweaty. They have no more nails left because they've been chewing them off. It's insane. But at the end of the day, it was a good decision and the prosecution avoided disaster. And the court denied defense motion for directed verdict. And when we come back in the morning, we're supposed to begin with the defense case in chief. However, it could be that we're just going in directly to closing arguments and jury instructions. which would explain why there was no court on Friday. Okay, guys, so that was the quick roundup from last week. I will be back in court tomorrow. I'll give you an update and let you know what's going on. In the meantime, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell. We're going to be starting in our cold cases very soon, and believe me, we're not going to want to miss those. In the meantime, I'll continue to report inside the courtroom from the gallery.
Nothing comes